So yes, revolutionary greetings, comrades. Welcome to our Pan-African Reading Club. We have a Pan-African library that runs this program of sharing books. We've been sharing many books. Of course, of late, we've been a bit reluctant, or we've reduced the volume of books we share. But you have a Telegram called the CSG Pan-African Library, which is actually having over 7,000 soft copy books written by Africans or Blacks or pro-Africa. And we have members here from the Pan-African Library who have been supporting that work, which we did for around 5 months to collect all those books. We still open up to share any books upon request, books that you can be able to find, and permit me to recognize members of the class and other members who are present with us, which include Sister Amma. Sister Amma, thank you for joining us, and greetings to you from wherever you are. We equally have General Nunaki. Greetings, General Nunaki. We have Hegel Mwash, and we have Howard Gain. And finally, we have our member, Alex Mwalua. Alex, you might be a new member to us. Permit me, can you introduce yourself, Alex? Alex, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm from Kenya.
You're from Kenya?
Yes.
Okay, feel most welcome, Alex. So, comrades, we've been reviewing this book called Defeating Dictators by Dr. George Aiti. We are actually in chapter 4 of the book, and here we are learning what you call modus operandi of dictators, how the dictators operate. And today, our subtopic is on the media bit. We started on the support base of the dictators. That's what we read last time, where we saw how dictators use the police and the military, and also how it used the media. So we are going on with our conversation today, where we read almost a subtopic, and then we discuss them. So we ended with this word that a despotic regime has at its disposal a whole battery of measures to control his state institution. This battery of disposals include that range from the mild to the cruel and to the barbaric ones. So today we will be looking at few elements on that, and we'll be starting with the licensing. So I'll be reading. Once I'm done, then we can open up and ask members, what do you think about this? So they say, under licenses and censorship, that radio and television stations may be denied licenses to operate if they are deemed to be anti-governments. And the licenses of existing stations may be yacked if they are perceived to be critical of the government. In Venezuela, Chavez's government declined to renew RCTV license to broadcast on the public airwaves in 2007, forcing the station onto cables. 7 stations were also suspended for not complying with regulations. Censorship of the print media is another tool used to suppress dissenting opinion. Newspapers and magazines are required to submit articles intended for publication to a censorship board for approval. Where such boards do not exist, journalists and editors must practice self-censorship. A series of violations of censorship laws may result in imposition of fines, jail terms, or the permanent suspension of the publication license. Another method is to deprive the publication and its staff of funds. For example, private newspapers that criticize the government may lose advertising revenues from state corporations. Vendors and journalists who write for such opposition magazines may be blacklisted. Now, I'll tie it to the next one, dismissal, arrest, and detention. This is the standard tactic where journalists or editors are arrested by security agents, sometimes in the dead of the night, for writing stories that displease the authority. For example, in China, Zhang Hong, a top editor of weekly newspaper who recently called for the reform of China's onerous household registration system that restricts where people can live, was forced out of his job in a fresh warning that journalists who boldly challenge the government policy face retribution. In China again, a former literature professor and relentless critic of China's single-party political systems and censorship, Liu Xiaobo was detained in December 2008. He had helped to draft a petition known as Charter 08 that demanded the rights to free speech, open elections, and the rule of law. He was released, tried, and sentenced to 11 years in prison for subversion. When he was awarded the 2010 Nobel Prize, the Chinese authorities were irate. They described the award as blasphemy, placed his wife under home arrest, and blocked him from attending a banquet called by his supporters to celebrate news of the award. In Iran, more than 90 journalists were rounded up to suppress dissent in the aftermath of the disputed June presidential election. When the Committee to Protect Journalists, CPJ, conducted its annual census of imprisoned journalists on December 1st, 2009, Iran still held 23 writers and editors, a figure second only to China. In Venezuela, President Hugo Chavez of Venezuela is waging an insidious media war. In August 2009, he ordered 34 radio stations to shut down. In September, his government pushed along plans to shutter an additional 29 radio stations. Murder and disappearance. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, in 2009, 25 journalists were killed. In 2010, this number shot to 71. Among the killings were Kazakhstan, where a prominent opposition journalist died after being thrown from a 6th-story window, his arms and legs bound with duct tape. The journalist Gennady Pavlyak was on a business trip in Almaty, the commercial capital of neighborhood. The commercial capital of neighboring Kazakhstan when he was attacked on December 16, 2009. He was in a coma before dying of severe trauma. His colleagues said he was 40 years old with a wife and a son. In March 2010, the despot Kamanbek Bakiev was overthrown in a popular revolt. In Russia, Anna Politkovskaya, a courageous journalist who exposed appalling human rights offenses in Chechnya, was shot 5 times as she entered her Moscow apartment building on October 7, 2006. Since her death, at least 7 journalists and human rights activists have been killed in Russia, including Anastasia Baburova, who also worked for Politsyava newspaper, the Novaya Gazeta. Baburova died hours after being shot on January 19, 2009. In Bahrain, Ali Abdulemam is a Bahraini journalist, blogger, and former prisoner of conscience. In 1999, he created the website Bahrain Online to share ideas and strategy for political change. He was incarcerated in 2009 for nearly 6 months for his activism, subjected to abuse while in prison, and released in February 2010. He was invited to speak at Oslo Freedom Forum on May 2010 and May 10th, 2011. On the dawn of new Arab world, he never made it. The president of the forum, Thor Halvorsen, said he had disappeared. Now, there's also criminal defamation and libel suits. Now, owing to the explosion in the number of satellite dishes and electronic communication like fax, machines, and internet and email, much more information is now available in the developing world. The new technology has severely crippled the ability of despots to control the flow of information and keep their people in dark. In their desperate attempt to retain control, defamation or libel suits, heavy fines, and murder have become the choice tactics of corrupt despotic regimes. A newspaper can be hauled into court for defaming the despot. For example, the reporting that he is not well. A senior government official can also bring legal suit against a newspaper for libel. For example, for publishing stories alleging corruption and incompetence. A pliant judge or court may impose a large fine that the struggling newspaper may be unable to pay, forcing it to shut down. The chinery employed here is that the despot may claim there's freedom of press, but criminal libel suits effectively preclude the possibility of a free press. And here are some of the examples. In Bahrain, according to Article 19, an organization that promotes freedom of expression, for example, Bahrain and Lebanon, have the highest number of civil defamation cases out of this country's surveys. Cases in Bahrain are particularly high comparative to the small size of the population. Moroccan court awarded the largest damages during the period, with its highest compensation of around 354 US dollars, thousand, or almost 100 times per capita GDP. The lowest damage awarded were in Egypt, Libya, and Algeria. In Belarus, in August 2005, authorities slammed Pavel Marazov with a criminal libel suit for short, satirical, animated internet cartoon that features caricature of President Alexander Lukashenko and his administration, and poked fun at him for his Soviet style of leading the country. Security agents questioned him and 2 others, accusing them of insulting the honor of Lukashenko, and charged them under Article 365 of the Criminal Code, which provides for punishment of 2 to 4 years in jail. However, the EU Human Rights Commission intervened and they were set free. In Tajikistan, on September 3, 2010, journalists Kamal Aral and Tilav Rasuzoda were detained by security officials in Kujad while reporting on attack of police station. Photos they had taken in Kujad were also deleted. They are libel cases against Asia Plus, Faza, Ozodagon, Paikon, and Milat for publishing articles critical to the government. In Russia, the Kommersant daily newspaper was ordered by Russian judge to pay $34,274 to Andrei Lugovoy for offending his honor and business reputation. The newspaper had reported the UK attempts at extraditing Lugovoy for the murder of Alexander Litvinenko, who was poisoned with a radioactive polonium in London in 2008. I'll be reading the last part, and then we can share thinking back to where we started, which is CAPS and internet and radio jams. The domestic sources of information under despotic regime are tightly controlled by foreign sources. But foreign forces are not, and they can provide invaluable information about events within the country. As such, a despotic regime seeks to block access to foreign sources by using a variety of techniques. Ownership of satellite dishes may be banned. Broadcasts from certain foreign stations may be jacked. During the street protests in Iran after the fraudulent election in June 2009, BBC broadcasts were jammed, and access to popular sites such as Twitter and Facebook were either blocked or slowed to a crawl. During Ethiopian May 2010 election, broadcasts from Voice of America, which is VOA, were jammed. Malays Zenawi ruling party won 99.6% of the vote. The Zenawi regime also used selective and irregular jamming to wear out opposition broadcasters and force them off the air. In 2006, the Ugandan government jammed radio stations that were airing election results, forcing people to rely solely on the Electronic Communication Commission, Electoral Commission Tally Center. Those elections were generally regarded as fraudulent. During street protests in Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, and Yemen, government repeatedly blocked internet access and text messaging. Access to the internet may be controlled by government-owned servers. Certain websites or blogs may be controlled that promote freedom are forbidden and blocked. Government agents may even hack into discussion forums to spy on who is saying what about the despotic regime. After street protests following the fraudulent June 2009 election, Iranian authorities went further in their crackdown on the opposition. They attacked the Facebook, Twitter, YouTube activity of Iranians around the world, identifying them as opposition protests abroad. Then they sent warning to their families at home. China's sophisticated internet filtering system, unofficially dubbed as the Great Firewall, blocks access to a range of foreign content, from negative comment about China leaders to details about sensitive historical events. China blocked access to Twitter during the bloody ethnic riot in the far western region of Xinjiang in July 2009, fearing troublemakers might use it to foment unrest. After the Jasmine Revolution in Tunisia in January 2011, China scrubbed the word Jasmine from internet search engines. Bloggers are also being hounded and persecuted for posting critical articles. According to Reporters Without Borders, a Paris-based watchdog group, at least 17 netizens are in jail across Middle East, 8 in Iran, and the rest in Bahrain, Egypt, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, and Syria, and the United Arab Emirates. China may be the biggest online oppressor, but the Middle East is not far behind. Africa, which has more despots per capita than any other continent, is the region where the flow of information is most severely restricted. Societies that advance are those that permit freedom of expression and the free flow of information. Of Africa's 54 countries, only 10 had a free press in 2010. Most gaining the public rights to information and the rights to hold and express opinion and ideas are guaranteed under both Article 19 of the UN Charter and Article 9 of the African Charter on Human Rights and People Rights, to which most Africans are signatory. Ethiopia, with a population of 83 million in 2009, has only one radio station and is owned by the state. The repression of the media has been sustained with mass imprisonment of journalists and stiff penalties of libel. The threat of jail has forced Ethiopian journalists to flee in exile. In 2009, anti-terrorism legislation set prison terms of up to 20 years for anyone who writes, edits, prints, publishes, publicizes, or disseminates statements that the government vaguely describes as advancing terrorist interests. However, no government has decimated the press corps as thoroughly as that of Eritrea, whose president Issa Afwerki doesn't even understand what a free press is. What is a free press? There's no free press anywhere. It's not in England. It's not in the United States. We'd like to know what free press is in the first place, he once asked. He closed all the independent media, rounded up critical editors and reporters, and jailed them without trial. quenching calls for democratic reform. Belarus and Gambia, North Korea, and Venezuela are among other countries where the independent media are brutally suppressed. Editors and reporters are routinely jailed and termed up charges of sedition, defamation, and false reporting. Wresting control of media from the hands of despotic regime, or at least securing the establishment of independent media outlets alongside the state-controlled ones, should be particular focus of opposition groups. That's the end of our reading on the media. The next will be on the judiciary. Sorry for reading too long, but I wanted to cover the media at once. Now the floor is open for members to come in, share what you think, what you can relate to, and what you want to share in regards to this text. Please feel free to unmute yourself and contribute or share your thoughts with us. Yes, anybody want to come in? Hello, can you hear me? Anybody want to come in? Alex, Janunaki, Howard Gale, anybody want to contribute anything? Alex, can you hear me? Hello? Can anyone hear me? Can you confirm? Hello? It seems nobody can hear me.
Yes, my brother, I can hear you.
What can you say about the text?
Yeah, to be honest, for now, I was still listening to what you're saying, my brother. I don't have anything to say for now. But later.
Okay, thank you. Alex?
I'm still digesting. I'll come back later.
Okay. Hegel, I know you are occupied. Unless you are willing to speak, let me know. Howard? Howard, can you hear me? Would you like to come in? Okay. Howard cannot be able to access his phone. Janunaki, do you want to say something?
Not necessarily. I was just gonna say, maybe can you continue with the reading, and then maybe we can even start to add our points.
No, the next part we are getting into is now on the judiciary. So this part today was more of on the media. And I want to give some context a bit. I want to give on some context on media.
Yes.
One is that I see we are being told that whatever the author is describing in this media element, I don't think is something new in Africa. Like in Kenya, we witnessed this. Even the recent protest that we had in Kenya here. The media was controlled. In fact, it reached a moment whereby the president, through the government, just this year on June 25th, ordered that all media stations should stop airing the live protest that was going on in the streets. And that media houses that could then go ahead to broadcast the live protest that was going on in the streets, their license will be withdrawn or they'll be switched off. Now, most media houses, in fact, 99.9% of all media houses that are reporting what's going on in the streets, the protests and how the police were brutalizing the citizens, they all switched off from live broadcasting. Only one media house refused. And in fact, I think their station was closed. Their broadcast station. But again, then they moved to court the same day, and the court turned that order from the government to be illegal. Now, most of the world today knows of what went on or what's going on in Kenya because of the media. One of the reporters from Kenya, who I think now works with CNN, Larry Madowo, actually shared lively what was going on in the state of Kenya during the protest time. Now, in the last protest, he actually was in Nigeria, and he recorded a video saying that he learned that the government had paid some goons to take his life or destroy his instruments should he come back to record live coverage of the protest. Now, in 2017, when the election was going on, the then Minister of Internal Security, who now wants to be the president of this country, called Dr. Fred Matiang'i, ordered that all media stations be switched off, and he switched off media stations during the election when he was a Minister of Security. In 2007 in Kenya, there was just power outage and there's no media that could announce anything. And the president was sworn in at night. Now, the issues of journalists being beaten has been seen several times. In various protests in this country, like in 2024, some of the journalists were seriously injured by police officers where they were on duty trying to do coverage of the protest. That has even happened up to date. And Kenya is better than many of the African countries. Now, you see again the social media. In the recent protests, most of the social media, for example, Telegram was switched off. But here we get like even countries like China go even extra mile to switch off even Twitter and those other countries, and those other social media stations. One of the bold media stations in Kenya that has been doing good work in the headlines has actually faced a lot of challenges, even to stand with the people. And if you look along, there have been accusations, like even one member of parliament was proposing that citizens should boycott media because they think that media is playing an opposition role to actually put or keep this government on check. Now look, for example, this question that the president of Eritrea was asking. He even went extra mile to ask, what is that what you call free media? Does it really even exist? Very interesting. He said, and I think I want to put it here, this president here, in this line, he said, Issa Faki said that he doesn't even understand what is a free press. And he asked, what is a free press? There's no free press anywhere. It's not in England. It's not in the United States. We'd like to know what free press is in the first place. And he closed all independent media, rounded up all political editors and reporters, and jailed them without trial. Of course, there's been discussion across the continent and in many forums that those medias work as agents of either CIA, MI6, or the West. And that they report things that are not in line with the government. The recent case is one of the young men who was killed this year towards the protest of 25th June was called Ojuang Frederick. It's believed that they actually manufactured a fake headline of a media station of a newspaper. And in this fake headline, they were exposing the Deputy Inspector General for having participated or for him receiving almost 100 million Kenya shillings daily. That's close to $1 million on a monthly basis as his salary. And it's believed that he gets this money from traffic officers at the lower level, who then channel this to the county officers and then send it to him. Now, this Deputy Inspector General sent General Service Unit, GSUs, to the media channel, which he called the Standard Media, to confirm on who published that headline about this Deputy Inspector General. And the newspaper Standard reported that it was fake. They did not, and they gave the real publication. Now, when they trailed this thing clearly, they link it to this young man on Twitter called Frederick Ojuang, who had actually was the first person to post that fake headline. But to them, it was not about fake headline. It was about the amount of information that I believe was true that this young man could be able to expose. Now, they trailed him to his home. They carried him to Nairobi, and they killed him in a police cell. It's even believed that this Deputy Inspector General met him physically to beat him to death. That created a lot of protest, including the president now sending some 2 million to the family, apologizing for that. Now, all this has been going on. And what I want to stress on as I end this and maybe give space for others to speak is what the author is advising us here. The author said in this last paragraph that wresting control of media from the hands of the despotic regime, or at least securing an establishment of independent media outlets alongside the state-controlled one, should be a particular focus of opposition groups. Why do you think he says so? That the opposition must actually have some independent media. It's because if we have to pass our message to the people, the media will play a critical role. And if we don't have any media on our side, then we might find it very hard to reach out to the people. So that's my input on this. Now, any member who wish to come in to share some of the input, please feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead. Yes, Sister Chisomo, and welcome. Greetings to you.
Sorry, came in late. I was elsewhere. And no, I came in late, but just from your comments, kind of, hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, sister. Go ahead.
Okay. So I kind of figured out what it's about, because this bothers me a lot, about my country and what happens here in the West. Like, is it Musa Faki who said, what does it mean, free press, and where is free press? I don't think there's anywhere that's free press, not even here in the West. I'll begin with my country. The press does not publish anything that they have not been paid for. There's a particular radio media house that's very popular. It's very, very, very popular. It always wins all the awards and things like that. But when you look at their practice, they do not publish anything that has not been paid for. Not paid because they are providing the service, but paid to say what they need to say. So with that, their broadcasting is not genuine and it's not to be relied on. For example, when we had the last elections, they campaigned against the person who was in power for the opposition. They campaigned so hard, and because people wanted the guy removed, so they all rallied with them. By the end of the elections, once we finished, one of the guys was recruited at the State House. The other one was heading the main media house. And they continued over there to then block everything else to kind of promote the new government. And obviously, because of the way the new government went into power, which I won't go into now, people turned against this government within a week. Oh, they lied to us. But he said this, he's not doing that. Within 3 months, the guy who left the media house to go and work at the State House, they fell out, he was dismissed. And they claimed that, oh, he's gone to China for some courses for 3 months. When he came back to this media house. He didn't go back to State House. Came back to this media house and started publishing things against them. So that's how the media, for example, in my country works. And then in my country, up to this moment, the internet was restricted. So social media could not take off which means we relied on these biased media houses. But now something has happened. There's so many 2025. There's so many social media channels, Facebook, TikTok, whatever you want to mention. The Malawians are there. I don't know what happened. I don't know who is creating these accounts, because it seems they're being created outside the country. And then Malawi has no control of them. They tried to say, oh, we're going to catch everybody who is creating this, who are on these channels, who deal with you. They passed a law to say it's cyber crime. They tried to bring a few people to court and they lost. They lost because the same courts that backed them for those elections are now turning against them because they've just messed up everything. They've messed up literally everything. So we've got these channels now. And I don't know how they do it. When the mainstream publishes something, they broadcast the same material, either to oppose or to comment on it or whatever, and then they create their own. And then all these activists have got channels. Now, politicians themselves have now realized they've no control of what the public is doing. They've come up with their own channels too. So nobody's now relying on the mainstream media. The mainstream media is trying to catch up. They tried to complain before, saying, oh, they're not trained journalists. They think they're journalists. They're just publishing fake news. No, we kept going. And now we've taken over all the publications, just as individuals in our own homes. So, and then when it comes to here, I can't share stuff on either Facebook. Somebody will put something on Facebook, but if I share it, because people in Africa or my circle will watch it, they will block me. They'll tell me I've violated community, whatever, violated this and that. I shared it on Facebook. But because it's for a certain audience, only certain people must see it. Our people must not see it. If you went to ChatGPT today, if you ask it to write something about us or something on whatever, they can't. But then the other argument to AI is that AI learns from the material that's existing. So if there's no material about us, what is it to write? Because people kept saying, oh, it lies. But we don't write. We have never been publishing until social media. And we haven't got anything on the internet itself. Forget about the social media, but on the internet itself, the material for it to use. So when you say, tell me about such and such, it can't give you much. It can't even give you the images you want. So everything is kind of restricted, and it will tell you, oh, that's against our policy, that's against our policy. You're asking a simple thing. It will say to you, that's against our policy. Can you start another topic? So we are the ones that are more restricted than anybody else. Apart from being restricted by the colonial masters and all these, our own countries then oppress us as into expressing ourselves. We just thank God we've got YouTube and we've got TikTok and we've got WhatsApp. We are able to, we can sit in all these WhatsApp groups, especially for me, this 2025 has been a wider network. I'm now in different WhatsApp groups with people all over the world. So we just thank God that somebody then gave this to us, and especially WhatsApp. It's not so restricted. It might be, I don't know. But sometimes it does. If it's a sensitive topic to them, they'll block it. You can't share these things. You can't publish them. So no press freedom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Grace, for sharing with us what's going on in Malawi and also where you live currently. Any member would like to share their thoughts on this text as well? Please come in. Any member? Anybody who will wish to share something? The floor is open. If we fail to get any contribution from all members, we might end up closing our meeting early enough. But what you said, Sister Chisomo, is also very important. There's a time when, in 2022, when I was aspiring for the presidential seat, as a young ordinary citizen, first of all, is that they refused to give me audience. But they could give audience to other people. So when they came to interview me in a place, they asked me to pay them. I had to struggle to get some money to pay them. When they came, I was told that they are going to air my news, my candidature, or what I want to do for the country. Now, I waited for them to air it on a primetime news. They told me they will not do it because there are so many news that are coming up. They can air some news of an event that happened in a village somewhere, but they won't air any news about my candidature or my political stand. Now, they have interviewed me today. The day has passed. It has not been aired anywhere. I'm waiting for tomorrow, still calling them. They're telling me the editor still has a lot of news. Then they air my news at around, I don't know, 7 p.m. or 4 p.m. or 1 p.m. when people are not even in any traffic of that. But it's also aired almost seconds alongside other news. So you realize what you're saying is somehow true. But unlike that in Kenya, of late at least, we've started getting some progressive Pan-African media, or not even Pan-African, progressive media channels. And that has helped us a bit to have bold interviews. Like there's an interview currently going on in Kenya of one of the Kenyan lawyer who was deported to Canada. In fact, I don't know, I think deportation is you are being deported to your country. In this case, this guy is deported outside Kenya to Canada. And he's a Kenyan by birth because he's a dual citizen in Canada, because he criticized the government. The current person who wants to be a president today was the Minister of Security, and say that he has deported him to his Canada, and he's a Kenyan. So you realize that even today is being hosted for an interview. So there's a big space, even though the government is really fighting the media space in the country, but the Constitution of Kenya has really helped the media also to come out very strong. So there's a very big space that you've done. Unlike other countries, I think they're still struggling. But this is what's going on in Kenya as well. Thank you for that. Any input?
because of all this social media, for example, again, my country is now able to discuss what you guys are doing in Kenya, what Traore is doing. None of that would have happened if we didn't have social media for them to start sharing this information. Otherwise, we would have It was always about the politicians in the country, and nothing else. The courts are only used by politicians. The media is only used by politicians. You don't hear what the general public is doing, whether there's any progress in the country or what general people are doing. It's always about the politicians. But now we can talk about whatever we want. And information is really, really flowing the way it should. And now we know what other people are doing and what they, because the same media people, even the social media people are now becoming bigger, even bigger than the what you call it, the what we called mainstream media. I remember one politician complaining that people are not listening. He was telling the media house I was talking about, the most popular one, the big one. So I was speaking to one of the presenters and he's saying, but people are not listening to us. People are not listening to us. They're not listening to your radio anymore. They're listening to this channel, talking about one channel on YouTube. That's all they're listening to. So they tried to get hackers to hack it. They tried, but he's become so powerful that he's got his own ways of giving it back as well. So, yeah, people thought you had to study media. No, anybody can do it. Even I can do it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think there's a lot that we might achieve with the social media coming in. Like Kenya has been very active on social media. The Twitter space has been used very progressively to help push forward the struggle for opposition against the government. And every day Kenyans meet on Twitter space. In fact, Kenyans don't do Zooms. They do more of Twitter space. Interviews are done there. Ministers are being interviewed there. Citizens, activists, big people in this country come to Twitter. In fact, even the president had to come to Twitter space when the people were objecting the finance bill. He was to host it in Twitter space. That day, that Twitter space, 140,000 people attending just to listen to what was going on. So they will try to control social media as well. The problem, and I think this raised to us as Pan-Africans one key challenge, that if we have to liberate the continent, then we must control the media. Most of the Twitter spaces that are run in this country, the people who run those Twitter spaces are not in Kenya. They are Africans who are living in diaspora. In fact, even some of the newspapers, I realized there's one of media station, a social media station, I realized that it's actually registered by somebody in UK, Kenyan. But the biggest thing is that, how about if tomorrow they have a deal with Elon Musk and they tell Elon Musk, shut the Twitter thing? What will happen?
Yeah.
Our revolution will stop there.
Yes, we just pray it doesn't stop. I always think about it. If they take all this away, and then what?
But I think it must then, I know people have created some of the equivalent sites that are at least African owned, but the biggest problem is the server. Who owns the server? The internet in Africa today, you're told the cables are passing through the Indian Ocean from US. So which means if US decide to switch off internet, the whole of the continent will not have internet. What are we doing about it? So there's a lot that I think we need to do. There's a lot on the front of media and publicity that we progressive or even Pan-Africans need to start investing on. Because as long as you're using an internet that is coming from US, you realize that you may not achieve much. And this is where
Especially if they know that we're doing all the planning through social media. But we hide into all these WhatsApp groups. But when we are in WhatsApp groups, nobody sees what we're discussing. So although we sharing through WhatsApp is faster, I think, than anything else. But our discussions are not remain in those groups, if you see what I mean. They remain in those groups. There is no way of then coordinating all the discussions like YouTube and Facebook and what you call it, TikTok is doing. So I don't, but then again, Africans have come up with different Wi-Fi's and all these things, but they all get either the country stops them or somebody else sends people to go and stop these people. So our own creations are also being blocked and restricted and not allowed in the space. I don't know who owns this space, but certain people won't allow us to go into that space.
Oh, Brother Howard is actually correcting that internet is actually obtained by satellites, not cables. But then who owns the satellite?
Who owns
Them.
the space so that if somebody comes up with something, it stays. It's not blocked. The person is not arrested. The person is not beaten up. That's what happens in Malawi. A few people have come up with things. At night, certain people turn up and they hurt them.
Now look at this scenario that is being described here. The access to internet, the one I want to highlight here. Look at it. It says that access to the internet may be controlled by government state-owned server. Certain websites or blogs that promote freedom are forbidden and blocked. Government agents may even hack into discussion forums to spy on who is saying what about the despotic regime. For example, after the street protests following the fraudulent general election in 2009 in the Iranian authority went further in their crackdown on the opposition. They tracked the Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube activities of all Iranians around the world, identifying them as opposition protests abroad. They then sent a warning to their families at home. China's sophisticated internet filtering system, unofficially dubbed as the Great Firewall, blocks access to all range of foreign content, from negative comment about China's leaders to details about sensitive historical events. China blocked access to Twitter during their bloody ethnic riots in the far west region in Xinjiang in July 2009, fearing troublemakers might use it to foment unrest. After the Jasmine Revolution in Tunisia in January 2011, China scrubbed the word Jasmine from internet search completely. Look at that. Look at that. And you see, Egel Moas is saying, of course, Twitter has become a lethal location for free speech. The dictators in Rwanda and Kenya have found methods of tracking account users through triangulation and IP address devices specificity. So you see, as much as you speak, they still come for you. They have arrested of them here in Kenya. And they're still arresting many and many. Like even in this, some of the meetings we have, they are spies to come and monitor what we are saying.
Yeah, even now, when we finish this meeting and you go on Facebook or whatever, you start seeing adverts about what you were discussing and you're thinking, what just happened there?
So what do we do? How do you ensure that we are out of the radar of the dictators? Is the biggest question we have to struggle with today. But the key thing, as we have been advised by the author, But we, the progressive forces, must take control or must have our own media stations. The question is, how long will they survive even to propel our agenda? How long?
This is it. I mean, how many people have lost their channels to this day? So many. Some people have been taken off the internet completely.
They have killed many.
Hmm.
They have arrested. They'll put more restrictions and more laws so that you don't criticize them, don't oppose them.
And then apart from that, you then get, for example, here, you just be careful on what you put on social media because even an employer can dismiss you over it. Now, when you talk about Israel, you get into trouble. You talk about this Ukraine at the time, you get into trouble. So you can't comment on certain things because they've become whatever they've become, sensitive subject, not to be mentioned.
Now, we thought that social media could play a good role to connect us, to express our thinking and our views. But having been addicted to it, we find ourselves back again in the control rather than freedom. Because we are getting now space to be monitored and everything going on. Of course, I see Brother Egel is still saying that we need alternative methods to combat methods of communication outside social media and telecommunication channels. We have secure applications, secure handset, and wireless radios. That's how they control us.
What do we have?
They say we have secure applications, secure handsets, and wireless radio. Secured by who? And where are they hosted?
Like
Because that's the biggest
Lumumba said, we don't own anything. If they plug off these things, we're finished. I don't know. Maybe other people who know how these things work.
But again, of late they have allowed us to speak freely. You see, Bishop Maponga speaks freely. His videos is circulated worldwide. Lumumba speaks freely and boldly. It's circulated worldwide. Arikana Chiombora speaks. Is it that they've reached a level they know that even if we know what's going on, we will not do anything? Or what is it? Because when they allow some
in certain platforms, like I've just said, if I try to circulate the same material, it will block me. Or sometimes you think you've shared it, but nobody can see it. So you'll find 0 views.
Howard is saying if Africa had access to satellite, how do you have access to satellite? What does it take for us to have access to satellite?
I have no idea.
Because if we cannot control the source of information, leave alone even owning the media platforms, if we are still licensing them with governments who can switch them off anytime, it's no longer independent media. It's no longer free media.
And because the governments are working against us, there's no way as Africa we can actually secure anything because the government want to control it, we want to control it, and then we start fighting over it, and then we start blocking each other and we kill it off.
You just imagine, I'm trying to ask myself, just imagine if today you wake up and the governments across the continent, which are despotic government, withdraw all the licenses of all media stations and then collaborate with social media, big giants like Facebook, owners, and Twitter, and also switch off all those platforms in Africa for a month. What would you do? And that makes us as Africa thinking seriously. We need to start thinking seriously on what we need to control.
We are in a very difficult position, and then we make it even more difficult ourselves by sabotaging each other, not working together. Because other African countries are advanced. and other countries are not in the same Africa. We then don't go to the other one to say, oh, how can we do it? Or that one to say, oh, try this one. And everybody works in isolation. So this one Africa thing, the leaders are not prepared for it, they're not ready for it, and they don't want it.
But I think I like what the president of Eritrea was asking. Do you think there's any president who would allow a free media? They say
Some do. Some are actively showing it. People like Botswana, Namibia, Traore, but the rest of the people are shying away. They just don't want to know.
Now you see, sister, for example, they say in Europe there's no free media. In America there's no free media. Even in countries called, for example, how do the government deal with the dissent voices, those who are opposing the government? How do they deal with it? Do they allow them to have a space to speak against the government openly and just then enjoy? Or to what limit do they allow that?
You do, but you have consequences elsewhere. Not directly.
Comrades, we really need to think about this media. Because if we are not going to own media in this digital era, even the unification of Africa, the liberation of Africa might be very hard. Because today, there are good things probably that are being done in Burkina Faso. But do we really get them in Al Jazeera, BBC, or any other country? No. We only get them through social media of those people in Burkina Faso are trying to show the world what's going on. If they switch off.
Even Burkina Faso and Traore, information is so restricted, you won't believe it. Out here, it's so restricted. So,
now, for example, if there was no social media, could we be able actually to know what's going on in Burkina Faso? Could we have even known who is Traore?
No, exactly. In those days, we wouldn't. And in fact, like I keep saying, I never studied history. So all these names that come up now, I'm learning all these things from social media and all these WhatsApp groups. Oh, so this is what happened so and so. So this is what happened in that country. Because history was never, our own history was never taught to us. Somebody just told me yesterday in Zambia that they were taught Zambian history just next door. And yet in Malawian history or African history was never taught. We have a comedian called Dalito, what's his name? Dalito something. He's now big. He appeared on British Has Got Talent and kind of came, I can't remember what name. He would have won the contest, but because he started talking controversial issues, so they said, no, we can't have him talk about these things on a platform like that. So then they kind of fell out with him and whatever, but he's now big. He still talks about controversial issues. So, yeah, so you just get restricted and restricted and restricted and restricted. But certain people like him, like Maponga, like whoever, PLO Lumumba, they'll keep talking about it because they can't stop there. If they can't speak on social media, they'll go to gatherings, they'll still talk. Even here, certain people are not even allowed to come here because of what they talk about. I was surprised Maponga was allowed in. But people like the guy in America, what's his name?
Dr. Uma?
No. Dr. Uma has been actually, he's been to Oxford University. But the other one, the Islam one, they wouldn't let him in. They wouldn't let him in to come and talk to us about stuff about Black American Africans and whatnot and struggles.
You mean Farrakhan?
Okay.
Farrakhan, that's it.
Okay, let's hear what other things is Chisomo. Any member want to come in on this issue of media? We are today talking about the control of media by the despotic states or the despotic regimes. And we have seen several examples from China, Pakistan, Russia, Eritrea, and other parts of the Africa. Is there anything any of our members would like to add? I know members have also been actively engaging on the platform, on the chat. People are saying we need to have to own our satellite and so that we can try to own our source of information. Anybody want to share anything? General Unaki, do you want to share anything? Or Sister Amma, any of you want to share anything to this conversation?
Yes, my lord. Give thanks. Yeah, I think ultimately you have to do what AES is doing. I think that is the ultimate way in terms of if you're talking about communication, because you need to remember there are 5 permanent veto security member states of the UN Council, which is USA, UK, France, Russia, and China. These are the 5 member states that have veto power over UN resolutions. So if you can look at what the AS did, they sided with 2 of these member states, which is China and Russia, who have veto power as much as USA, France, and UK does. Meaning all 5 of these countries are nuclear powers, meaning all 5 of these countries have independent communication systems. So I think if you can just follow AES, because AES already established satellite from Russia for communications of Burkina Faso, AES basically, I can say. And they are planning to build a nuclear power station. So I think obviously if you're talking about practicality, we as Africans, we just need to organize as the way that AES is doing, organize ourselves. If you have engineers, students, take them to Russia or China, they train practically how to make a helicopter, how to make a cell phone, you see. And then they come back, they build the cell phones. We have the resources in Africa. Start building our own thing. That's what they're doing there in the AES. They've already established an electric car industry. They've established a textile industry. People there in AES are wearing clothes made from the AES countries. And they've established a tomato industry, which obviously is owned by. So I think we just need to follow that thing. That's why the media doesn't want us to know what's happening there, the AES, because they know what's happening there is the things that we are talking about every day. They're just doing it practically. As I just mentioned, they cut their stations from America and France and used the satellite from Russia. So I think also we can follow that way. As soon as we won't be using Russian satellites for our communications forever. We're gonna start learning and learn as much as they are doing. They've sent some few students there to go and learn advanced science in Russia. So in the coming years, we should expect black youths in the AES inventing a rocket ship, maybe perhaps to reach the moon. You never know. So I think Tina, we as Africans, we just need to get rid of these Western people we love so much. We've been working for them, by the way. So we just need to realign ourselves with Russia and China. And then when we get strength, then we can be independent. We can start building our own things. The reason things are being destroyed is because people are building things on their own. They are not in companies or corporations. Obviously, you're gonna be in trouble from the state.
Mm.
And if you were building things as an organization or community, that cannot be destroyed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Raspara. Thank you for coming in and thank you for your input. I think, as you said, that of course, moving to Russia systems are short term, but at least with a goal on how you learn to be fully independent. We have been depending on this West system for the last 60 years. So I think it's high time we start doing something about it. Sister Grace? I can't hear you, Sister Grace.
Sorry,
Sister,
yeah, sorry, I was muted. No, what I was saying is to comment on the last bit about working together, not working as, I mean, because we're all working as individuals and not as companies or groups or whatever, corporations. That's one challenge I find, or shall I say in Africa. I can always talk about my country, but it's very, 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 very challenging. And I feel sometimes, not sometimes, but I feel dealing with a fellow Malawian or us is even more difficult than the government itself, is challenging than the government itself. Because what are the chances of me interacting with anybody in the government, but my own people on the ground? But it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible. They'll sabotage, they'll kill it, they'll take it away, we will dismiss each other, we will negative each other. So everybody now is, oh, you don't, if you even see the videos on YouTube and everyone say, oh, don't tell anyone what you're doing. Don't tell anyone what you're doing. So how do we work then if we're not going to share our ideas and get help from somebody to progress this thing? Because when it grows, you can't manage it. That's the end of it. So that in itself is very, 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 very challenging. So everything is always small, 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 or not at all. Thank you.
thank you. Sister Amma, do you have anything to share with us? Regards to this conversation?
Hello, good evening. Sorry,
Hello, good evening. Sorry,
I had some problems not logging in, staying in, but I've resolved them now. Yeah, I'm reflecting. I think one of the things that we need to constantly remind ourselves is that social media is a tool, is a tool of communication and information. It is not the only tool. And what does one do with tools? Well, two things. Tools can be used for good or bad, any tools. A knife, for instance, good use of a knife is you use it to peel and cut up food to create dishes which people can eat. Bad use of a knife is you can use it to take the life of somebody else. So when we interact with social media, who's ever produced it, we look at how we use it as a tool, and we need to look at other tools of communication as well, and tools of communication which enable us to not just reach out to others who are very close to, but reach out to what I'll call, for want of a better phrase, ordinary people at the grassroots. I was earlier on today reading a short article about Nkrumah, which talked about when he went back to Ghana, the organization that pulled him back, UGCC, United Gold Coast Convention, just had two branches. After Nkrumah went back, by, I can't remember the time period, he raised those 2 branches to over 500 by actually communicating directly with people. So some communication has to be off social media, off of digital platforms, and in person. I think we forget that there's still an awful lot of Africans who have very limited access or no access to social media. So let's just see social media as a tool and use it to, based on what we have at the moment, use it to best advantage. The struggles of African people will continue, whether we're part of it or not, because it's an instinctive thing. If there's injustice, people will struggle for justice. So they will continue. So our role is to look at how each of us can contribute towards forwarding and accelerating that struggle of the people, ordinary people, whether I'm part of it or not. People will continue to struggle for a better world for themselves and their children. And we look at what tools we can use effectively for communication. And just to finally wrap up what I'm saying is journalists are very, very important, or those who work in media, and they are often the very, very first point of, how can I say, what's already been highlighted from the very first point of attack, because if you get good journalists, they will spread information. They will spread information, share information, and stimulate people to think. And all of the time, we need to be stimulating people to think and then take their thinking and their understanding to organizing. And what they're doing is they're organizing for a better world, which is organizing against all of the things and all of the formations or whatever that oppress them and sap their right to a good life. So that's my contribution. Sorry for talking so long.
Thank you, sister. I think I wanted to come out with something. Is that today, as you said, yes, social media is not the only tool. But again, as you're saying, is that we are informed today because of social media or media. We are able to have this conversation today, review the tactics of dictators because of our social media or a media platform. I think when President Nkrumah came to Ghana, George Padmore was working on something. If you can remember, Sistama, what was the role of George Padmore? I think he was given some role in terms of information dissemination when they came up with their magazine called The New Africa Rising, or what was it?
Yeah, so Nkrumah went so sorry, let me get my train of thought. The fifth Pan-African Congress. Was there, Padmore was there, of Sierra Leone was there, Kenyatta was there, and what relatively small group of Africans did is about how to free Africa from colonialism. An invite to go back to Ghana. But let me say, George Padmore was very much, he was almost like a political mentor, advisor to Nkrumah, not just George Padmore, but others. So they were constantly in communication and strategizing about how to not just rid Ghana of the yoke of colonialism, but that when Ghana became and gained its independence, how Ghana would then go on to support the struggles of other African nations. So if we look at Ghana immediately upon independence, a whole host of people and organizations went to, Nkrumah organized 1958, the All African People's Conference. A whole host of people went to that, like Lumumba from the Congo, various other people. Mugabe actually trained in Ghana, worked in Ghana. Mugabe's first wife, before he went, as far as I'm concerned, off the rails, was a Ghanaian, Sally Mugabe. Sally Mugabe is a Ghanaian. A Ghanaian actually with Sierra Leonean roots as well. So there was Pan-Africanism was very much a part of that whole struggle. And what Nkrumah recognised, and what George Padmore recognised, and what people like ITA Wallace Johnson recognised, is that the strength of the struggle is in organising the masses of the people. So any communications we have, they have to be the centre of it. So we communicate ourselves in a small group, but then our communication is almost like a web, have to go out and reach our ordinary people, which means that whatever we learn, we need to be putting in a format and a language or languages which reach ordinary people. So that's why I say it is a tool. Every time we're using this tool of social media, how we are reaching, to reach all different groups in our community. Women, market women, taxi drivers, farmers, school teachers, doctors, nurses, everybody. It's not just about a small select few of us. How many of us are in this? We're 7 of us. It's about the people. The struggle is about the people, not just the 7 or the 70 or even the 700. It's about the masses of the people. I have finished.
Yes, Sister Amma,
I have finished.
thank you for bringing this. Of course, it's part of the tactics I'm intending to use for the purpose of my presidential campaign in the next election in Kenya, especially reaching the lowest level of social media or media stations. Now with what we call the radio stations that are listened to in the market, local radio stations. Some people want to go for big televisions, big Twitter spaces. Some of them forget that the local radio station of a village there is getting more audience in the village than anybody else. But above that, I was asking you to get into this element of, and I think you've raised something very serious, Sister Alma, that I was even sharing in the recent event of the fourth, solidarity with Burkina Faso, on the event that I spoke on in regards to the Pan-Africanism and this space. And you see, what Nkrumah did, Nkrumah not only brought the Ghanaian to struggle for and defend their liberation, Nkrumah brought Padmore. Nkrumah also brought Du Bois.
Yeah.
Is that right, Amma?
Yeah.
He brought Padmore, he brought
Padmore, he brought
Du Bois. There are others.
There are others
There's
known
a guy called Bankole
Bankole
from Nigeria.
from Nigeria.
So what Nkrumah did was really so he invited a whole host of let's say technicians, professionals from not just other parts of Africa but from the African diaspora.
There's an element I want to point to, Sister Alma. It might be very far away from this, but not so far away. You see, where the Sahel region has reached in terms of its liberation, it has got the support of the popular majority, both in the continent and outside the continent. As much as the focus has been on how we can develop Sahel and see how Sahel can work and be industrialized, I think they need to borrow something from Nkrumah. And by borrowing something from Nkrumah is first to consider what Nkrumah said, that the independence of Ghana was meaningless unless it was tied with the independence of all African states. And that, to the context of the Sahel, will be that the liberation of Sahel is meaningless unless it's tied with the total liberation of the whole continent.
Exactly.
And we've been seeing efforts trying to topple that But even the recent visitation of the West African leaders to Trump, we've seen the accusation that were coming into the neighboring countries. And it's a high time that the Sahel must organize itself to the level where Nkrumah was organizing himself, trying to help or even host the Today Africa Liberation Forum, where they can bring the progressive forces that are working, the Pan-African forces that are working to liberate various countries together, even if it's in Sahel, support them the way Nkrumah was supporting, not by talks, but going out, because we have given our solidarity enough and our support enough in terms of talks and standing with them. It's high time that they must realize that they must help the continent by supporting forces like the same way Nkrumah supported the like of Patrice Lumumba to help. I did not be Nkrumah's effort to organize the All Africa Liberation Conference. Many of African countries could have not even geared towards that independence by that time they got it. And that went even extra mile of Nkrumah recognizing the element of communication. That's why he went down to put books and wrote things that could then be spread out, as much as some of them were censored, but to put ideas into books. Nkrumah came up with Padmo on that newspaper, I think Africa Rising or something like that, as a means to communicate and update the people of Ghanaian on the progress going on. Same way we are seeing today newspaper making some progress. In Kenya, I think Jomo Kenyatta came up with a certain newspaper calling in Kikuyu, facing the mountain, that they could be written in their dialects for them to understand what's going on. These are things that we should not actually despise. If the focus of our revolution is towards the masses, we must use all means or platforms that are actually accessible by the masses. Some of the platforms we might be targeting, like Twitter Space and the rest, might not actually go to the masses so much, but to the literate or the fortunate or the advantaged percentage in the community.
Hello? Hello?
Sorry, I got distracted a bit. Sorry for that. Ndalala. I'm saying that we really need to organize our means of communication to the lowest place possible that can reach out to the majority of our people. Because the revolution is for the masses, and until the masses get the message, until the masses get informed, they may never make an informed choice. But when the masses knew what was going on in Ghana, for example, through the media platform that were going on, they were ready to defend Nkrumah. The same way the masses of Burkina Faso today know what's going on in Sahel, and they are ready. And not only the masses of Burkina Faso, the whole African and Black community know what's going on, and they're ready to defend. That is the essence of media, be it social media, be it newspapers, be it TVs or mainstream medias, even be it the books and songs. Sometimes we forget that even books and songs play a very critical media for communication. And to me, I'll say that we really need to think. The reason why we study the dictators is to know how they control the media, not for us just to lament, but to come up with a solution on how can we liberate our people, irrespective of their control. That will be my take for now, and thank you very much. I'll allow more members to come in, then we'll move towards closing our session for today. We were only focusing on the media for today. And in fact, let me end with this, it says that free media in Liberia, in Rwanda, in Sierra Leone, and in Somalia, for example, will have saved those countries from implosion. And it is free media, not sanctions, that was to have the Iran nuclear ambition by then. It's free media in North Korea that will spunk that incongruable type into good behavior. And they say, and free media will clip China's chopsticks mercantilism down to size. But finally, what I'm interested in is this part, that the free media are the most effective weapon against all dictatorship. How do we take control of that media? Because it can only be free as long as it's controlled by people who are pro the revolution, and it will never be free. If it is media for the revolution, it's the revolutionaries that must control that media to send revolutionary messages. The same way the governments and those other hidden forces use their media to send out their message. That is my take for today. So any member want to come in? We are wrapping up. We are in the last part of this. Next time we'll be going on the control of the judiciary. We are looking at how the dictators take control of key government institutions or key institutions in a society to propagate their dictatorship. Does anybody want to come in this last hour as we're almost going to an end of this? Yes, Sister Grace, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just being positive that regardless of what's going on, we're pushing on, and we're doing well. Now that people, including Malawi, has now caught up on this, I don't think people will be tracking back, or they'll keep fighting back. And somehow, we will find an alternative. But at the moment, we're using this effectively and it's working. We just have to keep trying. And also, we're beginning to work together. That's why we're all in these groups. We've never met, we've never worked, but we're able to form these groups and come together and discuss things without worrying who is in the group or what they're going to do, because previously it would be who is in the group first, trying to check who is in the group. And a lot of people use different names just to protect themselves from all this. But yeah, the fear is decreasing, and we're pushing and pushing. A lot of people don't care anymore. So it's happening. We will come together.
Thank you, Sister Somo. Brother Runaki, your last word on this?
Yeah, give thanks, and okay. Yeah, my last take will be obviously in everything we do, and even that includes establishing infrastructure for communication. Security is at the front line. That's how why AES is striving and expanding year by year, because they have a military, and Russia is training and giving weapons, and China is giving weapons to their youths, and the youths are defending their community. No one can come there and sell drugs or come prostitute or whatnot. You can't do that in those communities. Those people are more united than ever because they are militant. And the problem with us Africans, we are not militant, we are timid. Yeah, we like comfort, and so we can't even defend our own. So they are defending their own there, meaning no one can go to those community stations and start to report things that are not supposed to be reported there in Burkina Faso. No, it can't happen. And my last take on communication is that free media is not good in terms of what we are trying to do as Africans right now. Right now, we as Africans are supposed to be thinking about one thing, that is developing African, Pan-African. We don't want any other information. We don't need any other information now, because these other informations are these ones that coming from the West, telling us, no, Traore is just like Mabutu. You see this thing. You see this free speech. So now, if we're going to allow these things to happen even in Africa, we're going to one day, we're going to hear people say, no, even Nkrumah was a CIA. he was a Freemason crewman. You see this free speech. So that's why I'm saying we need people like Traore, men to take control. Yeah, when we say we are going to build a tomato factory, we're building a tomato factory. Don't want to hear any other thing until that project is finished. If you want to raise a point, you don't have to go to the radio. When you have a community meeting, raise your point there. It will be noted. Yeah, so that's my take, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get to again, you can text your comment on the chat together with Howard. If you're able to speak, please speak. If you're not able, please share with us your last comment on the chat as well, as you have been doing. Let's get to Sister Amma. Sister Amma, what's your last take on this?
Yeah, you mentioned
Yeah, you mentioned
other means like radio, and radio is very important because, of course, as much as the written word is important, we have to bear in mind that a significant number of our people have not been trained to be literate, and also a significant number of African people do not speak, or I'll use the term, do not speak fluently in the colonial languages of English, French, and Portuguese. So radio is another important means of communicating and spreading those tentacles to reach everybody. And part of how the independence struggle were won in the various African nations was through mass mobilization. In Ghana, they had what they called the Positive Action Campaign. Some violence, but primarily non-violent. In other parts of Africa, they had to wage armed struggle, and we know where those regions were. The struggle now is against a new form of colonialism, which we call neo-colonialism, which is changing its shades and its look daily. And the struggle cannot be won by a handful of intellectuals, and by intellectuals, I'm just talking about those of us who read and write. It has to involve the people, because the struggle is for them, it's for their benefit, it's not just for the benefit of a handful of us, it's for them. So that's what I'll say. But it's good that we have these discussions, and we learn and we look at how we strategize and go out to build a movement, because that's what it's about. Thank you.
Thank you. Egel and Brother Howard, I haven't seen your comments on the chat. If you still wish to share something via text or audio, please let me know. If that's not the case, then I'll also briefly share my final word in a minute, and then we'll just close the meeting for today. Next time, we'll see how now the despots control the judiciary and those other systems as well. And what do we really need to do also in that line as well? That will be our next reading. So I think Egel has shared his thoughts. That let me check on what you said. You said that I think the future of Africa is getting control of its resources. Economics is the way to go. Thank you, Egel, for that. But how do you even know what you own if not through the media? They tell us that we don't have any minerals until the media starts saying how much we have. Just recently, we realized how much is in the conservatory, what they call the conservations in Kenya. Many people did not know that, but we realize that in all those so-called conservations in the country are actually mineral deposit areas where they pretend that they're doing animal conservation, while in reality, they're actually exploiting our mineral in those areas. So until we have right information, we might even not know how to control our economics. Until we have our right information. We've also seen even those people who have money to even the billionaires in the country who even have money to form their own radio stations or media stations, they're still being controlled by the government. When they're told to shut off, they shut off. So it's a long way to go, but thank you for your input as well. But finally, comrades, permit me just to say that the struggle might not be won in one direction. We must apply all tactics necessary at our disposal. But the biggest thing is to be very strategic, because we can do a lot. And I think the neocolonialism struggle that, as Sister Amma said, do not require to work hard. It requires to work smart. And I've been challenging my people in the streets of the Kenya today is that no matter how many times we might go in the street and shout Ruto must go and protest here, if that information cannot reach a villager somewhere over 600 kilometers in the rural down there about why Ruto must go and what he has done, then that person will still wake up the next day and vote the same president because they're not informed. So how do we ensure that you have strategies to devolve the information we have so that we can reach the masses? We don't need to control what they have to do, but just need to inform them. Because an informed person can make an informed choice. And as Sister Amagen has said, them being informed do not require them to have formal education. It only require them to have the information required so that we can then actually block this propaganda, because this contest is the struggle of propaganda. And whoever makes their information reach the masses, that is it. So that's what I'd like to say today. And I'll request that we need to reconsider the media platform. People have said, of course, that we need to have our own satellites so that we can have our own satellite control that can control our information. I think that most of Africans must start thinking in that direction. We must ensure that you also own some of the progressive or positive action media channels that can give us space to speak our mind. Of course, as Brother Raspal has also said, General Nonaki, the essence of free media. How free can our media be free? Some criticism might not have basis, and therefore, as much as we maintain the freedom, they must only be based on facts, and facts alone. Because also propaganda and rumors and misinformation can also be disseminated to the same media. And therefore, the media can ban a country or the media can build a country. That will be my take today. And thank you very much for joining us today. See you again next Sunday as we continue the reading. Blessed evening to you all, comrades.